Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, or when it is that you're tuning in to today's episode. I'm Jonathan Bengal, host of Naked Tax Talk, where we bear down to the naked truth about our personal lives, our business lives, and of course, our monetary lives. Because what I know to be true is when we improve upon the self, we naturally improve our business, which is a reflection of who we are. And the money, honey, also increases because it too is a reflection of our business and of ourselves. I'm often asked, Jonathan, why do you have to show up naked on your show? Well, the reason is because through nakedness, I am creating and cultivating courage. There is nothing more devastating than being caught naked. Also, I'm super excited to have a guest with me today, and I'm going to butcher her name, and I apologize. But I know her as Lynn, but she also goes by, I think it's Elikqitie. And we are going to talk about her travel-free. Reverse that. Travel gluten-free traveling. Something like this. She's going to teach you how to travel while also avoiding the gluten-tins. And she also was brave enough and courageous enough to show up with her ukulele. So we probably will get a cool little play or two. And of course, we're going to answer the question, how do we convert personal travel into business travel for the ultimate deduction on our tax returns? But you're going to have to watch this show for at least 20 minutes to get to that segment of the show. Without much further ado, I am super excited to introduce you to Elikqitie, Travel Gluten-Free Podcast. By the way, I was a guest on her show, and she's going to talk about that a little bit. But I want you to know that she's a producer, an author, an artiste, entrepreneur, and a writing. And I have to say, she is a lot of freaking fun behind the screens. She has owned several businesses, including a health food store, hey, and a smoothie bar. How in the world do you not go away from that? And enjoys turning her creative talents into a business model. By the way, her love of travel mixed with her drive for staying current with health has led her to mix her passion with creativity and publishing her podcast, Travel Gluten-Free. Elikqitie wants to bring excitement, fun, and enjoyment back into the lives of people who live the gluten-free lifestyle. And by the way, I'm going to ask her a whole bunch of questions about this, but I can tell you right now, she is passionate and she is a lot of fun. She wants to put together people who are combining great interviews along with informational episodes for her own podcast. Elikqitie brings the how-to for living a stress-free, gluten-free life to people in the gluten-free community. So without much further ado, Elikqitie, welcome to Naked Tax Talk.
Thank you, Jonathan, for having on. And actually, it's Elikqitie, but I do like the way you pronounce it better. It has like a very worldly accent going on with the way you pronounce it.
Elikqitie.
Elikqitie. It sounds even more exotic than Elikqitie.
I mean,
Elikqitie.
Elikqitie. It's Elikqitie. So welcome so much. And by the way, I have to give you props for showing up on my show, Practically Bare, which, after all, that's what this is about, having fun and being vulnerable with me. So thank you so much for being willing to do that. I love it.
Well, it was so easy to not have to worry about coordinating clothes.
That's the ultimate, right? I mean, we might have to put the makeup down a little bit lower, maybe. I don't know.
Right? No, totally. It's funny because when I was getting ready, I was like, I don't have to think about what I have to wear. I just have to match my purple ukulele to my makeup, and that was it. And it was super simple.
That's true. Your lipstick is actually matching the color of the wood on the ukulele. Mm-hmm. Hey, that's color coordination for you.
Heck yeah. If anything, you gotta be color coordinated on video.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. So, I want to say Elikqitie, but
Yeah, I love that. I love the accent.
Yeah, I'm like, is it Spanish? Is it French? I don't know. Je ne sais pas. So, okay. So you have this amazing podcast that is traveling gluten-free. But I have to ask you, were you always gluten-free, or how did you come about to be gluten-free?
So I have not always been gluten-free. I grew up in Philadelphia, and I'm Italian Philly native girl from South Philly, which is part of the reason why I am fun. There's no way you can be from South Philly and Italian and not be fun. Well, I mean, I guess you could. You definitely can't be quiet. Yes. I always have something to say. So I was born in an Italian family. was never gluten-free until 7 years ago. And I did a whole like elimination diet and then got tested and then found out I have an autoimmune disease called celiac. And then realizing my first big trip after I was gluten-free was I was driving the Pacific Coast Highway. So if you've never driven,
we've done that. We've done that too. Yes,
if you have never done it, you need to do the entire thing from California to Washington State. Because I hear some people like,
oh my, yes! Okay, it's the best. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No,
you're my guest.
Totally
you talk.
Okay. That is totally that. So if you haven't done that, you have to do that. And if you don't know how to travel the Pacific Coast Highway, just hit me up on my website, which we'll talk about later. And I can totally send you my whole itinerary that I did. Anywho, I did a 3-week trip. It was amazing and fun. So I realized on that trip, and I was in my car doing a road trip with food in the back of my car, how hard it was to be gluten-free and travel, because when you have celiac disease, not a lot of people understand how badly gluten affects you. So just for an example, if I get a bite of bread, like somebody accidentally serves me bread, regular bread, which people have done before, and I always double check to make sure it's not regular bread. And every once in a while, I'll be really hungry and forget to check. But if I get one bite of regular bread, I will be sick for 7 to 10 days. And to not be too descriptive, it's like a cross between the flu and food poisoning. And that could wipe out your entire vacation. So I have to be extra. I'm always very careful with my diet because I'm really careful with my health. But I have to be extra careful when I'm traveling because no one wants to be sick on their vacation.
That's true. That's the worst. Is to that's happened to me a few times. You go traveling and you feel great, you feel wonderful, and then you get Montezuma's revenge. That is not fun at all. So what are some tips that you, and just the tip, would you share with the travelers out there who are going, okay, yeah, I'm gluten-free now too, and I'm struggling with, so how does one mitigate the damages? And by the way, before you do, I have to introduce Noisette, my kitty cat. She adopted us.
Cat.
We do. She's brand new to the fam.
What's her name?
Noisette.
I have a black fluffy cat. He's inside because he's very crabby today. He's having catitude on me, and his name is Jack.
He's like, not today.
Yeah. He's like, oh no, you didn't feed me dinner, Mom, and you're on this interview. I don't even want to talk to you.
She's a fat cat, this one over here, I'm telling you. Okay, so how do we have a travel experience gluten-free?
Okay, so I'm going to give you guys some like basic tips on traveling gluten-free because there's a lot of information to know, but these are the things you want to know. The first thing you want to know is if you are gluten-free and you are traveling, you have to download the Find Me Gluten-Free app. So Jason Elmore is the developer of that. I've had him on my show twice. He was a computer programmer when he found out he had celiac disease and realized that it took a lot of research to find gluten-free restaurants. So the Find Me Gluten-Free has a free and paid version. If you travel a lot, spend the $12. It is worth its weight in gold. You can find restaurants anywhere you're at in the entire world and see reviews from other people who are gluten-free. Super helpful for finding a safe restaurant when you're out on the road. I use it a lot. Another travel tip is that if you are new to being gluten-free or you just want to go to a place that it's not going to be really hard to find good food, you want to go to an urban area because the more urban an area is, the more likely you are to find safe gluten-free food. And there are certain cities that are more gluten-free friendly than others, like New York, Chicago, pretty much almost anywhere in California. All the major cities have gluten-free options. And then so there's certain places, certain cities that are gluten-free friendly that you'd want to try, like Victoria, Canada. When Canada lets us back in, that's one of the best places to go if you're gluten-free. Yeah. Oh. So there are certain cities that are more gluten-free friendly that are easier to eat at if you're gluten-free. Another thing is that if you want to take an easy first travel, a road trip is a great idea because you can bring your food with you. You can pack it in the bag. You can put it in your car and you don't have to worry about it. Just obviously be careful with stuff that's perishable. So road trips are easy. And this sounds completely bizarre. Cruising. If you are gluten-free, a cruise is one of the best ways to go. And the reason why is because cruises are very service oriented. And so if you go on a cruise and you have to tell them ahead of time, like I think it's like 2 weeks or a week. I can't remember exactly which. And it depends on the cruise line. You tell them you're gluten-free. You tell them it's for medical reasons because some people say they're gluten-free and they're really not, and they're just trying it out. And so a lot of times when I go to restaurants, I will tell people I'm gluten-free, and I say it's a medical reason, I have an allergy, so they know it's serious. I'm not just trying it for fun, or to see if it makes me feel healthier. So, but yeah, cruises are great. You can talk to the maitre d', you can tell them you're gluten-free, and every night they hand you the menu, and you can pick on the menu, and they can tell you what they can make gluten-free or not. I've never gotten sick on a cruise.
That is really good news. And you know what? You mentioned something. I want to back up. So I want to back up a little bit because you touched on something that I want to pull out a little bit and just a little bit. And that is that you said, not just because I'm just trying to try it out or just because I'm trying to be healthier. And what that alluded to me was that you must face your own discrimination based on this.
Yes.
On this idea, right?
Right. Yes. So one of the things I see a lot, especially when I go out to eat, because of the gluten-free thing, is that because some people just say they're gluten-free. So I've heard this from several wait staff, and this is why you have to be very specific when you go out to a restaurant and say it's medical if you're celiac. Is because I have said, okay, I'm gluten-free, and I tell them it's medical, and I tell them I can't eat stuff out of a fryer that's shared with anything with gluten in it because it'll make me really sick. Like
Wow.
Like, don't put anything on it that's sauce that's gluten-free. And if they say to me, like, I'm pretty sure it's gluten-free, I reiterate, can you go back and check with the chef? Because I will be sick for several days if I do eat it and it has gluten in it. So I'm very, very, very specific about my medical, because your health is number one. And oh my gosh, if I get gluten, I get sick for days. I have horrible joint pain, and I'm a writer for a living. And so don't want to have joint pain in my hands while I'm writing, because writing 4,000 to 6,000 words with painful joints is not fun. So,
no. And we're not talking about the smoking joints either. So, no,
we're not. Those make your hands feel better.
That's true. CBD really helps. So let's talk about that. So you are also a writer, which, hello, fellow author. So you wrote a book then, I take it.
Yes,
and what's it called?
It is called The Guide to Traveling Gluten-Free. It is not purple. And in here, I have over a dozen chapters of how to travel gluten-free. Because when I first found out I was gluten-free, I was doing research on the internet. I found a lot of things like, hey, here's 50 restaurants that are gluten-free in Chicago, or here are some great places to eat in New York. And those are all fine and dandy, except if I'm not going to Chicago or New York, it doesn't really help me. So I was trying to find out the teach a man how to fish thing, and couldn't find it anywhere. So I started my podcast. And then after I did a bunch of episodes of my podcast, people were asking me, do you have a book? Do you have a book? And I didn't at the time. And so I wrote this during COVID, and wrote this pre-COVID and released it 2 months after COVID hit, which was perfect timing for a travel book, by the way. Not. And so anywho, it has lots of really great information. It tells you how to. So no matter where you go in the world, you can use this information to find safe gluten-free food, which is the number one most important thing when you are gluten-free.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. So have you been to countries? I'm going to just pick Italy because I've been there. It's the most obvious. Because I was disappointed a little bit. Hold on, let me back up. I was disappointed a little bit because when I travel internationally, especially, I feel like the food represents, that country or that space. So here we go to Italy. By the way, we went to this beautiful chateau there for a week. Gorgeous. By next Firenze. But I digress. And I'm like, pizza, spaghetti. And then I forget, wait a minute. They're the ones who influence our culture here in the United States. But how do you go to Italy and apply your gluten-free tactics?
So here's a little fun fact about Italy. I have never been, but I am actually going to be there next May on a 14-day cruise that hits 7 new countries I haven't been to. A lot of Greece. Santorini has been on my hit list for forever. So anyway, so I'm going to be there this coming May. But a little fun fact about Italy that a lot of people don't know is Italy has the highest rate of celiac disease per capita. I'm Italian, got that celiac gene. So many, many, many restaurants in Italy do safe gluten-free for celiacs, because if you don't, you're not getting the whole family in for dinner. So almost any restaurant you can go in Italy and tell them you are celiac, they understand what celiac means, and they usually will have safe food for you, which sounds completely the opposite, because obviously pasta and bread are the first 2 things we think of with wheat, but Italy actually is one of the safest countries to eat at if you are gluten-free.
So that means no Blue Moon for you because it's made of a wheat product.
Unless I could get a gluten-free Blue Moon.
Oh yeah, okay. I've never looked into that, but that's kind of. I mean, that's just really fascinating. So now, what? So you're an author, and we know that you have your podcast. And what other things do you do for business wise when it comes to your travel?
So for travel, because both my writing and my podcast are under Travel Gluten Free LLC, I travel to places, obviously take pictures, write blogs about it, put it on my podcast. So like I'll take pictures, come back, do a podcast about it, like 2 to 3 months later, do a blog on it so people know, like, hey, if you want to read it, you can read it. And so that's basically what I do when I travel. And of course, eat gluten-free food, find gluten-free restaurants, talk about them, and post them on my Instagram, which is Travel Gluten-Free Podcast. So
Yes,
those are the main things that I do with my business.
I
And
love
writing
it.
and content writing. Of course, I do like website content. I do podcast content. So if you have a podcast and you're looking for a podcast content writer, I write show notes for over 300 episodes a year.
Oh,
So
there
if
we
you,
go.
oh my
Okay,
gosh,
all
I can write
right.
show notes in my sleep.
There we go. So we're getting somewhere now. So you also provide this service for fellow podcasters and I imagine entrepreneurs as the content creation.
Yes, I love creating content for other people, and I love creating in their voice and style so that when somebody reads your website and they read content I've created and they go to talk to you, there's no discord or disconnect between your voice on your website that I've written for you and your voice when you're talking to somebody to pitch them, to sell them, to network with them.
You know, it's interesting you say that because Paige, she's been on vacation the whole week. I give my employees 5 weeks paid off, and so she's taking advantage of her week for the summer. And so I miss you, Paige. But so what I love about her is she writes a lot of my content, and I remember the first time she started writing stuff for me and sending it out on my behalf, and I would get the preview text like on the newsletters and stuff, and I would be like, oh my God, like that sounds exactly how I would say these things. Or sometimes she'd make it even more pizzazzy, which makes sense because I can be pretty pizzazzy. And I'm like, oh, so I totally get it that you can, in fact, take someone's voice, the way they speak, et cetera, and translate that into content. That is amazing. But I imagine that we enter your world through, of course, travel-free, gluten-free podcast and listen to your amazing episodes. And I have to get to the ukulele. So tell me about this ukulele, and do you play?
So I just started playing. I play a whole 7 chords, maybe 9
Ooh,
on a good day.
oh,
So I can play C. I can play, oh, I think my ukulele is a little out of touch or out of tune. I can play F. Oh, it is out of
uh-huh.
tune. Okay,
Here's
you
that
guys
too.
can be playing chords.
Hey,
Anyway,
you know what this just says? This just says, like, you know what, life throws us different opportunities, and sometimes we're not in
yes,
tune with it yet.
yes. Well,
Ah,
I sing out of tune, so maybe I should just play out of tune and sing with it, and then I'd sound in tune. I don't know.
that,
But
you know
this
what?
is I think this is a Luna. I believe it's a soprano ukulele because there's
Oh,
4 different
cool.
sizes of ukuleles, and this is a soprano. And I love this ukulele. I shopped for weeks and kept coming back to this one and decided to pull the trigger and get it. It also has little plugins on the sides. If I want to put it in a speaker, I can do that too.
Oh,
But
that is cool.
yeah, I want to give a little shout out to Ukulele Underground. It's a native Hawaiian business that I have been learning to play. So Ukulele Underground, shout out to you. You're the reason why I know my 9 chords.
How do you spell ukulele? Anyways, I want to put that in the comments. Ukulele.
Ukulele. I believe that is correct.
And they said ukulele. What now? Down under or something?
Underground. So it's
Underground. Ooh, it's like in secrecy.
ukuleleunderground.com.
I love it. That's like if you want to go and learn something underground, under the the darkness of night, you can practice. That's how I learned my Russian, actually.
And under the
Yes,
darkness of night and
under the
secret.
darkness of night. So one of my really good friends, they came from Russia here back when I was 18. They were in he was 20 something, and I'm a person that likes to go somewhere and speak their language, and I was constantly hanging around him and his family and the community. So I secretly started taking Russian classes at the university. And so one day I go to this discotheque, and there's this beautiful woman, probably the only one I've ever had a crush on. And I go up to her and I said, ты очень красивая, like you're really beautiful. Ты хочешь танцевать со мной? Like, would you like to dance with me? And she goes, ты говоришь по-русски, like you speak Russian?
I love it.
So like I was like, nah, yeah, yeah, voodoo. So anyway, so we just had this great time. And then she says to me, I can't dance with you because my husband wouldn't approve. And here comes her husband down this hallway. And I'm like, damn it. The one time that I have this crush on this chick, and like I want to dance with her, and of course she's unavailable. But I digress. And come to find out, at that time I was like 20, and she was like 35. So who knew I was into?
Woohoo! Go, Jonathan!
Woohoo! Yeah.
If you're gonna go big or don't go.
That's it. That's all there is to it, right? You know what? This reminds me. It's kind of like business. You know, if you're an entrepreneur and you have to have the courage to approach somebody and say, "Come do business with me. Come into my experience." So that I can take you into a whole new level that you've never experienced before. Isn't it the same thing?
Yes, it is. Yep. Yep. It's just getting out there. And I liken starting a new business to jumping off a cliff. Like everything in your head's like, don't do it. It's the unknown. But then you just jump off that cliff and do it anyway.
That's exactly what entrepreneurship is. And hopefully we've planned it out in advance so that we have anchors that kind of lets us down or into the direction that we're heading in. So we are at the 21-minute mark. But before we jump there, you actually interviewed me for your podcast, which I had an amazing time doing, by the way. And I assume you're also looking for guests to talk about their travel and gluten-free experiences too, right?
Yes. So yes, your episodes were amazing, Jonathan. So if you want to listen to Jonathan's two episodes, we had a two-parter with Jonathan. It's 145 and 146, and he talks about his adventure on the Camino de Santiago Trail, and that's all I'm going to say, except for foreskin. That is the only foreskin and two balls. That is the only icebreaker / I'm going to give you. And so you have to go and listen to 145 and 146 to find out about what foreskin and two balls means.
And what has to do with traveling?
What it has to do with traveling. Exactly. And so what was I going to say? Oh, sorry. So what was your question? So your question was?
So my question is that you're always looking for guests too, right? That have travel and gluten-free.
Yes. So you don't have to be gluten-free to be on the Travel Gluten-Free podcast. You do have to have a passion for travel, and you have to have a fun travel story. It doesn't have to be like dangerous or super crazy. It can be if you want to, but if you do have a really cool travel story, like Jonathan's, you can listen to 145 and 146 to see a great example. Then please hit me up on travelglutenfreepodcast.com. Check me out on the contact form and say you would like to be interviewed, and just give me like a few sentences about your experience. Or if you are gluten-free and you travel, tell me what you do, and I will definitely consider you for my show.
I love it. Okay, so now we are entering the section where we're going to talk about a tax question that you have. And I'm going to try to give you as much clarity as possible. But before I do, let's all keep in mind that I'm not here to give you tax advice, either for you or for my viewers and listeners. You still need to go and consult with a tax professional, preferably an IRS enrolled agent like myself, a certified tax coach or planner like myself, and of course, shout out to the CPAs as well. So, are you ready? What is your tax question?
Okay, so my tax question is, being that I'm in the travel business, I would like to know what are some travel expenses that if I tried to itemize them or put them and take them off my taxes, that would raise a red flag with the IRS. Because that's the one thing I do not want is the red flag from the IRS.
Oh, God, that is actually an extremely loaded question because it in my head, this is what I saw. I saw like an explosion of the word travel and it fractured into multi-pieces everywhere. Mainly because one of the questions that I have to ask is, what is your tax entity structure? Do you happen to know that? What are you?
I'm an LLC. So my Travel Gluten-Free is my main LLC. And then my Right For You, which is my content business, is a DBA, my Travel Gluten-Free. But it's all under the same EIN, under a single proprietor LLC.
Love it. Single proprietor. So what that tells me is that you file under Schedule C on your personal income tax at 1040. Well, what if I tell you first that in my course, Rapid Tax Savings Formula, which I developed, so shout out to myself, that we would actually teach you why that is actually not the best tax entity structure to be in. So
What?
I'm just going to throw that cookie crumb out there. Yes, that is not the best necessarily for tax structure. Legal protection, you're doing a good job. You're doing what I call practicing safe sex, and you're using a dental dam. So that's a good start.
The CYA of business law.
Exactly. Dental dam it up. Now, so travel is really fascinating. And I had to ask you the entity, because the entity is what's going to unlock different types of travel deductions in a way. And I'm thinking, like, are we employing people, or is it for the benefit of the owner? So those are other questions we have to take into effect.
So right now, it is mostly for the benefit of myself, the owner, and I do have contractors, but not W-2 employees.
All right. So there's a couple ways we can look at that. So let me write that down actually in my notes. So we got contractors and no employees. Okay.
No W-2. Yep.
All right. So let's just talk about for the benefit of us, the owner. And by the way, there's a key term here, and it's called a fringe benefit. And there's somebody who might go to prison, who used to be a president, who probably will go to prison for violating fringe benefit law. You see, Al Capone isn't sent to prison for being a murderer. He's sent to prison for being a tax avoider. And so the same other person is committing the same crime. So we'll see how that flushes out in the courts. But I digress. So here's what it is. A fringe benefit is a benefit that essentially the owner receives as kind of like a bonus. It's kind of like a thank you so much. But in all actuality, it's for the benefit of the business. So if we remember my book, The ABCs of Deductions, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Tax Write-Offs, I say that in order to have a deduction, in fact, I don't say it, the IRS says it, in order to have a deduction, you have to have a business purpose. So what's the intention, right? So I have to have the purpose to do it. And I also need to say, is it ordinary and is it necessary? So you are a travel explorer, right? Like you're a blogger for travel. And your whole purpose is to give advice on travel to everybody around you, correct? And you fill your coffers up because they come in and the episodes have advertisements and they might pay you for consulting fees, etc., right? So that is the ordinary in the sense of you being a travel person. That's your thing. Whereas somebody who maybe doesn't travel at all, and that's really hard because we all travel. So I guess the analogy doesn't work out. But nevertheless, ordinary, meaning it's what's expected of your profession. And is it necessary? Meaning, do you have to invest the money? Notice I didn't say spend it. Do you have to invest it in order to continue to make more money? And if we can say yes to do these two things, we have a deduction potentially on our hands. So travel is very fascinating. In fact, in my book, which where is my copy of my book? I'm actually in my kitchen right now, believe it or not. I didn't go to the office. I did at the office a little bit today, but I digress. Anyways, in my book, Under Travel, here's the thing, right? Uncle Sam says that he understands that we as entrepreneurs need to sometimes travel in order to accomplish the job. So sometimes we travel to network. Like, for example, I'm going to the eWomen's Conference coming up in a few weeks in Dallas. I'm actually leaving next week to Galveston, Texas for an entire marketing shoot for my business. So Uncle Sam understands that we have to go somewhere in order to conduct business because it's ordinary and necessary to our profession. And so as a result, Uncle Sam says the following: you can deduct the transportation to get there, right? So the Uber, the taxis, the Lyft, the boat ride, the ferry rides, the subway, the train,
the airplane.
The airplane, yes. Now, I'm not going to say cruises, and here's why. Because you see, there's a provision in the law that says cruises are acceptable. So this year I'm going to the Marketers Network cruise in November. But Uncle Sam's very, very diligent about cruising because it's polluted with personal use. And so what we want to do as business owners is we want to select cruises where there is a business function happening on that cruise. And
Oh,
so, for example,
okay.
the Marketers Network cruise, right?
I
So
was
we
going
have,
to say, so if I go to a specialty diet cruise that is specifically for people who are gluten free, then would that be covered under that?
and you have to have an agenda. Like, let's say someone, so better yet, you can sponsor this event on a cruise, right? So you become the sponsor. So you have to have an agenda. So
So
I have to have,
if I'm doing a workshop on that cruise, would that be considered an agenda?
yes, yes, right. And here's the other thing. Your ass has to be teaching pretty much every day while on that cruise,
Okay, I
right?
can do that.
Yep. So you got to be doing something on that cruise, right? And we're inviting clients and future clients and potential clients, right? So you can totally have that. So we can pay for the transportation, like I said, the tickets, the transportation to get there, however way. Now, cruises though have a limit. Uh-oh. So the maximum, the last time I read it, so I got to go look it up again, but the maximum you can deduct as a tax related deduction for your business on your return for a cruise is $2,500 max. So if the cruise is 5,000, your business is still going to pay for it, 5,000. But your accountant or maybe you in the back end of it, you're going to take out the other $2,500 because you can't deduct that. And we're going to call that a distribution, which, by the way, I talk about distribution in Rapid Tax Savings Formula, and we really dive into what it means. Plus, I also share two other ways in which we can take money out of our businesses legally without paying too much in taxes. So I digress. So now you've got the cruise. Okay, so $2,500 max. Done. Now, what about though the meals, right? Well, meals for 2021, you're still going to get 100% write-off for your meals. So pre-COVID in 2020 backwards, you had a 50% limiter, right? But this year in 2021, it's 100%. But here's the issue with meals.
No.
Listen, taxes is trying to get to first base on the first night. Like
Right.
you start moving down, you start undoing the shirt, and then there's a bra you got to get through, or there's like a t-shirt you got to get through. That's
and
kind
then
of like
the thing, yeah, taxes are like, is the bra hook in the front or the back? I can't tell.
That's exactly it. So meals has 5 hooks before you can take the deduction, right? Before
This is why I don't buy 5-hook bras.
So it turns out that when it comes to meals, we have 5 test points we have to meet. So I'll tell you right now that your receipt that you're going to ask for is going to have all of it except for just 2 other things. So what the receipt's going to show is the date, what you ordered, basically how much you paid, including the tip, and where you had this event, this meal. And it includes booze. So if we're drinkers and we like our vodkas, yes. If we like our coffee or teas, we like Blue Moon, whatever, that also includes beverages.
Vodka,
So
I have no idea what you're talking about. What vodka?
I don't know either, but I'm just saying, right? So, okay. So we have the vodka thing. I mean, we get the meals thing. So the place, the amount, and the date stamp. What's missing on the receipt is critical. We're missing 2 things: the name of the person that we engaged with, or the event that we attended, or the purpose of why this is a business related deduction. So again, traveling to a business function, there's your purpose. What next is what was it about? So who were you with? So we all have a purpose, and then who are you with? So again, the purpose is to meet you in New York with me over a cup of coffee, and we're going to go over your tax strategy, which, by the way, I do with my clients. In fact, I was in Houston a few weeks ago doing exactly this. So we can go and have booze in Houston together, and the purpose is to talk about your tax plan for 2021, right? And I write on the receipt your name, and I store it in my documentation. So we actually talk about in Rapid Tax Savings Formula documentation. Listen, we spend years and years building our enterprise. And then one day when we get audited, we don't have the receipts to prove it. and Uncle Sam negates it all. And now you owe a shit ton of taxes, and you can find yourself with no career because it's all going to be taken away through this process. And by the way, you cannot claim for bankruptcy to eliminate your tax debt if the debt is less than 2 years of age. Just saying.
Ooh.
And even then, when clients go through bankruptcy, the IRS gets first creditor status and does not necessarily forgive the debt. So negotiation is a little bit more tougher. So we don't want to do that, right? We don't want to get this hot body and then eat gluten all over it. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. All right. So traveling. So airfare and meals are your basic, and the transportation. And let's talk about lodging, because Uncle Sam, he doesn't expect you to be in, without a roof.
Sleeping in your car.
Yeah. So he's
Although
like,
I have done that before.
Yes. So he's gonna say Elikqitie. I keep saying Elikqitie. Elikqitie. I'm gonna say
That's okay. I love it.
Elikqitie. He says Elikqitie. That's what happens. You want to go traveling, so you're gonna go. Okay, classic example. I'm going to Galveston, Texas in a week, right? So I'm going there for a business-related purpose. My marketing team that I've hired, of course, is putting together this cool, badass, B-roll and I don't know what other fun stuff. I don't know what else. So the plane ticket to get there, first class, by the way, to and from. Why? Because Elikqitie, who sits in first class?
Business people.
That's right. And who sits in the carriage? Not the ones that can afford us, right?
People.
Just kidding.
No, I do sit sometimes. Sometimes I do. And sometimes I sit in Comfort Plus on Delta. So, it just depends.
Listen. So at the end of the day, though, right? But see, Uncle Sam is saying to us, let's be strategic, right? Let us purchase a first class ticket in the event that you still have to do the effort. You still have to do the work. You still have to engage the person sitting next to you. And you know who you are because you've met me before and it's sitting next to you. But I'm one of those people that will chat your ear off the whole entire flight, right? So I digress. So first class. Ooh, my business is going to deduct that as a business-related cost to fly my ass to this marketing event that I got to go to. Then I said, but I'm not staying in a Motel 8. Those were for college days. Like, I ain't doing that no more. So what did I do? I found me a very cute, literal oceanside bungalow on the ocean waiting for me to show up. Why? Because Uncle Sam says you need a place to sleep so that you can be refreshed, so you can be ready, because your job is to make a whole bunch of money. So let's get you refreshed. Then Uncle Sam says, while you're there, like, you might take people out to eat and to drink. I just said that just now. That's what we're going to do, right? It includes going to the bars. We're having fun. I'm engaging people. Okay. So anyways, now what happens when you forget your toiletries? Well, unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done for that, because unfortunately, your business doesn't take a shower. You do. So
I don't know. Sometimes I do business in my shower. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I love in the shower, I'm always thinking of like my new speeches and new things I'm going to do. Like, I love it. But no,
okay. So technically, I have done business in the bathtub. I will let you know. In the bubble bath, no less.
That sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
It is a lot of fun.
Especially if you do originally my show was going to be shot like that. Us in the bathtub together having this conversation. That was the original concept.
We should have done bathtub.
Yeah, totally. It was the original concept. But I digress. Universe will send us in different directions.
Virgin
Next time. Virgin 2. Exactly. Oh, that will be Naked Tax Talk, no longer the Virgin. So
Naked Tax Talk with champagne and bubbles.
Oh my God. Yes. It has some of my episodes I have that going on. I'm just saying. Okay. So the travel. So we need to get there. We need to have a place to stay and we need to eat. Oh, but what about if I want to rent a car? Absolutely.
Oh God. Car rental. Don't even get me started on how expensive car rentals are right now. I spent more money on a car rental than a hotel last time I traveled.
Oh my. Well, that's what I'm about to drop $600 for a week, basically, for this car. And it's just a basic economy car. The reason why I go cheap on that part, personally, my personal opinion, for me personally, is because I don't like paying for the gas. I drive a Prius Prime, so I don't pay for gas, but maybe once every 4 months.
It's because you're very ecological, Jonathan.
That's just how I roll, I guess. I try to be. So needless to say, so the renting of the car, right? What if I travel and we go to an amusement park in the process? Absolutely. right? Now, that was a little much stickier, but the idea there is, do we have the clients with us? Do we have the future clients? Are we having the event, right? The location must have a purpose behind it. Why are we there? If you're going there just for a spa treatment and nothing else, personal. But if I'm there because I'm treating my clients to this experience, I may have a deduction. So that being said, think of it like this. In Rapid Tax Savings Formula, I teach my clients how to fully separate themselves from their business. Because when we see that my business is not me, and that it doesn't take showers, and it doesn't have emotions, and it doesn't do a whole bunch of things, we can begin to understand the concept of when things become a deduction. Because if it's personal and use, it's an absolute no-no unless we utilize the fringe benefits. And then we're going to use special documents called accountable plans and things like that. That's going to allow us to move otherwise taxable events into non-taxable events and therefore create a deduction. Now, I'm going to complicate this. If you were a I guess you could still be an LLC, but let's say you had an employee. All right. Notice I'm not talking about the contractors, because technically those contractors are not your bitch.
Exactly.
I don't know how to put it. All right. You cannot dominate them. You cannot spank them. You cannot nothing, right? You have
not professionally anyway.
Yeah. You have no control over them. And that's the key thing. A lot of people think, oh, a contractor, and then I can tell you what to do. No, girlfriend, you can have no power.
I actually I'm a contractor for other people, and I've had other people try to do that with me. And I'm like, oh, I'm the contractor. I get to pick when I go on vacation.
That's correct. That's the truth. So, but if we want to control people, right, then we turn them into an employee. Now I get to tell you how much I'm going to pay you and when to come into work and all the other fun stuff, right? That's what's going to happen when I have an employee. But there are perks. You see, the misconception that we have as small entrepreneurs is that I have to spend a shit ton of money to hire an employee. But the truth is you can compensate your employee in multiples of ways that does not require you to pay a bonus tax of nearly 12% for hiring someone to work for you. And one of the perks is a travel benefit. So you could say to your employee, up to certain limits, by the way, you could say to your employee, we have a meeting, example, I'm taking Paige. She's my director. For those of you who've watched my show long enough, you know I have a director. So she goes with me everywhere, right? Because she's like my right-hand chick. Like, she does it all for me. She's amazing. So instead of paying her a higher salary, I say to her, come with me as my employee to this event. And while we're there, we're going to do team building activities that requires us to go to the museum together, that requires us to play trivia at the park, or, whatever it takes. Or maybe we sit down and take a tax course together, in a beautiful lake somewhere, or whatever. Like, the point is I'm providing the first class seat. So when we're going on this cruise in November, this is how we're doing it. This is how JB Financial is taking care of me and her, right? So JB goes like this. Jonathan and Paige, you guys are going to fly first class because we got to send you on the networking cruise. You got to get more clients. We're also going to pay for you to stay at the Cocobana Hotel, or whatever that hotel is. That's super nice, to stay there on the resort and soak it all in. Because why? Because you both got to go. Theoretically, I could take myself out of the equation and I could strictly just send Paige. So you see how that could work? So all the flight and the hotel and the travel and the cruise, all for the benefit of JB Financial or jonathanbagel.com, either way, however I cut this cookie. And she subsequently benefits from that experience. And in some cases, it's a tax-free benefit to her and to us.
Makes sense.
Give an idea?
Completely. Yes. So would you like another question? I have one more in my head if you'd like it. If not, we can.
Yeah, sure.
Can put it aside. Okay.
Yeah,
so another question I have is that if I have somebody, so I have a VA who lives in Jamaica and I'm paying him via PayPal. What is, like, do I, like, obviously he's not in this country. So how do I have to claim him as far as taxes?
You see how I puckered up?
Yes,
Okay,
I did.
so
That was a pretty epic pucker, by the way, I must say.
okay, so that is a complicated question too. Again, it's like it's just trying to get undressed. So he is a foreigner who's earning American dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the last time I checked, is that you are required to withhold 30% of their pay, and he is required to apply for an individual tax ID number. And depending if Jamaica and the United States has a tax treaty for how the income will be taxed, either in this country or both countries, determines it. So in a nutshell, for your purposes, okay, so if I was representing you, I would be saying to you, issue them a W-9. That's the form that the contractor is going to issue to the subcontractor. It's a W-9. They fill it out with either an EIN number, which is an employee ID number, or a social security number, or a tax ID number. They hand that back to you, and then you cut them the check for the services they've completed for you. But at the same time, you're also letting them know that you're withholding 30% of the pay and submitting it on their behalf to the Internal Revenue Service, and it's up to them to file a non-resident tax return to claim the refund if there's one due to them.
Okay.
Wow, that was complex. How did that make you feel? So that's like and believe it or not, a lot of entrepreneurs, we don't know these rules when it comes to issuing 1099s. Yeah. But like, that's the complexity. Here's another one for you. It could be an American citizen, and you say to them, you're going to do a job for me, I need a W-9, send it back. Because the rule is you have to submit a 1099 to the IRS and to the recipient if they need more than $600 in cash or checks or equivalents, unless they're lawyers, in which case it's 1 penny. But I digress. So, so needless to say, even in the United States, if someone refuses to give you a W-9, you as the contractor has a due diligence to say to that contractor, unfortunately, then I'm going to be required to withhold 30% of your pay. I don't want to do it.
Amazing how many people don't know that if you're a contractor, you have to pay your own taxes.
That's correct. Up to the tune, at a very minimum, 15.3%. And in fact, like I said in my course, Rapid Tax Savings Formula, I go into details in terms of the 4 tax entity structures and which ones yield the greatest tax savings. So again, we want to unlock the entity structure that yields even greater benefits. And we talk about that. Corporations, S corporations, partnerships, and of course the single member LLC or the partnership LLC. Anyways, I digress. So what I also love about my course, which by the way, it's launching September 2nd, y'all. September 2nd, 2 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. And what I'll say is that we go in more detail in terms of those deductions, because the truth of the matter is I'm talking about travel. I don't have the time to go even deeper into advanced travel secrets that creates even more tax savings. So I've been doing my little shout out. So those of you that are watching and you're interested and I piqued your interest, there's a link for it right there in the chat. Feel free to go there right now. It is going right now for $15.97. I'm gonna tell you fools right now, $15.97 for a 5-week course. It used to be $9.97, and we're finding that our clients and our students are rapidly increasing their profits, aka their cash flow, because now they're starting to think like the badass CEO they were born to be. So, Elikqitie, I know that you are a badass CEO, and I can tell you right now that with all your traveling, you are hitting it on the nail. In fact, you mentioned you had other companies. I too have other companies. And just based on what you shared today, I already have some ideas to further separate things to create even more tax savings for you based on just what we had a conversation with already. And to give you a hint, I own 3 companies. JB Financial, which is my tax prep and compliance firm. JonathanBengal.com, which of course is my teaching and my consulting firm and tax planning firm. And then last but not least, Naked Tax Talk, which is my marketing firm. So we talk about how we utilize these different businesses to shift income and expenses between it all to yield greater tax benefits.
Got it. Makes sense. Yeah. It's like all in how you play the game.
That's exactly it. It's like traveling gluten-free. It's like going into a restaurant and being like, are you gluten-free or not? And then you gotta assess, in an ideal world, while you wrote a guide, we would pre-plan that out before we went somewhere and went like, oh yeah, Elikqitie says you have to eat at this place because they have gluten-free X, Y, and Z.
Exactly, yes. And there's a huge thunderstorm behind my computer, which I'm fine because I'm on my porch, but just so you know, like the wind's like, woohoo.
Where are you at?
I live in Utah, right outside of Salt Lake.
Oh, so you're similar environment.
On my front porch, yeah, so I can show you.
Ooh, look at that. She's gonna hold her ukulele up.
I hold my ukulele up and the crazy thunderstorm in the background.
Yes. Wow. See, if you were my client, I could say, you know what? I'll come to your place and this is what I offer in the Bengal Experience. We'll do a full VIP day where we sit down and really get to know you more. And my company will pay for me and my director to go and spend an entire weekend or a week with you. So see, Uncle Sam's gonna let me write off the plane ticket, the car, and the food and the lodging just to go over there and have a one-on-one experience with you.
Heck yeah, that would be amazing.
So with that, thank you so much, Elikqitie. By the way, if you guys would like to know how to travel gluten-free and you yourself need to travel gluten-free, first of all, tune in to a lot of her amazing episodes. I listen to them. I think they're fantastic. She too is an amazing interviewer, in case you cannot tell. Travel-free, gluten-free podcast.com. You could probably go on Google or Amazon, The Guide to Traveling Gluten-Free, which is packed full of information for you. And of course, if you want to find her on LinkedIn, doesn't copy per se, but it's super long. Just go look her up, Elikqitie. I keep saying Elikqitie. She's probably going to keep that name now. Elikqitie travel gluten-free A as in Apple 817-2B as in Barry 189. That's going to be at LinkedIn if you want to connect with her there. So thank you so much, Elikqitie. And before we go, is there a parting words of wisdom you'd like to share for those out there today?
Oh my gosh. Wow. I wish I'd known that. I would have thought of something really thoughtful to say right now. But the one thing I can say off the top of my head is that if you want to be successful and you want to make your next move in life, one of the things you have to remember to do is to just do a little bit of something each day and put one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward, and you will eventually get there.
I love it. And by the way, the reason why I didn't prep you for that is because I wanted to hear what your soul had to say. And just so you know, your soul just spoke through, which is important. By the way, last pitch, I teach this in Rapid Tax Savings Formula, how to connect with your soul, because it's dying to show you the badass CEO you were born to be. I'm Jonathan Bengal. Thank you so much for tuning in whenever it is that you do. If you found that you liked today's episode, please hit the subscribe button and the alert button. And even better, please please forward this episode or any others to your friends who also might be engaged. And I got one last thing I want to put in here. Let's remember, we came to become entrepreneurs for 2 reasons. One is because we were born with the gift of providing happiness to others who suffer in the same way, which is why I created my 5 steps to financial happiness, where I go through my seed method. So I feel free to subscribe and to get that access to my 5 steps to happiness. But also, let's not forget why we really became entrepreneurs. At the end of the day, babies, it was for mucho dinero. Until next time, Until then, auf Wiedersehen, adieu, and thank you, Elikqitie, for being a guest on my show. May you be happy, may you be free from suffering, and may you never be separated from your happiness.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. I enjoyed being here.
Thank you. Toodles noodles for now.